Alright, well, we're back for another session here on the 8th grade design project, and that's where we left off. It's a little crowded around here on the desktop, so let's see what we got. This is my desktop now. I used to have a huge long library counter for a desktop, but now I've got this limited space, and so it's kind of hard to operate sometimes in here. Alright, well, when we left off last time, of course we're working on our personalized flag or banner, and we're addressing all of these various elements of art and principles of design, trying to include all of this information and also answer questions about it if we would have to do that, if somebody were to ask us to explain what all that means. And so we did our preparatory work. It took us a couple days there to lay out the idea, and you can follow along and do exactly what I'm doing if you so desire. Just change the symbols and such, right? So that it suits you and meets your needs. That's perfectly fine with me. Or you can come up with your own design, but it must, you know, answer all of these questions and include all of the issues that I'm asking you about and requiring. And so it may come out looking completely different than this, but as long as it's a good design project, I'm happy with it. And so when we left off, I was transferring information from my 8.5 by 14 legal size idea paper over onto this, and I'm changing it a bit as I go because I come up with better ideas, I think, and you know, the more you plan things, that leads you to better ideas rather than just taking whatever you get. So I think in today's session I'm going to do some of the, like yesterday, I'm going to, in the previous session, I'm going to put in the easy work as I see it first, and then just work from the general to the specific. And that's always, honestly, a good way to approach making artwork or solving any problem. So making art just leads you to that generalization. However, it's a good problem-solving strategy for a lot of other things. So where I'm going to start out is with the chevron and the flags and the mountains, and these are things that can be drawn in quickly and easily and advance the project a little bit more quickly as we go. So I think it's probably going to have to be with the mountains first, and they don't have to be a precise duplication of what we see on our work product or our idea paper, but they should be pretty close because that's why we spent the time planning it. Now I noticed that my mountain actually cuts off this part of this diagonal line, which I think is actually kind of attractive. So I'm going to give it, just start trying to make this look natural, like it's, you know, if you've ever been to Tennessee or southern Kentucky, you've probably seen, West Virginia for that matter, you may have seen numerous mountains in those areas. And so this just reminds me of the hills from where my mother is descended, and so that's the I think she would be happy to know that I'm using a symbol to represent her part of the country that she is from. Now some people would just use chevrons here. I'm making my mountains, I want them to look a little bit more natural, so I'm going to go with more of a loose effect for my mountains. I don't want them to, but you could just use like almost like pyramids if you wanted to really emphasize the design work in this. So now I think that I've got that done. I'm going to go to this flag. I still need to review precisely what all of the colors and the order is, but I'm going to use the flag next. And it looks like it's falling somewhere in between these two circles on my idea paper here. So I'm going to probably tend to put it a little bit more up towards this area, because you know, if we use large symbols, they're much easier to color in, plus they're more significant visually. So I'm just going to go with the lazy S, and it's going to run off the paper like I showed it over there in the worksheet. Now I think I might just use a ruler for this part because I'm a little uptight that way. Okay, now what would I want to do with that? Because, okay, the mountain actually comes off of the paper too. That's what it is. Okay, see, now I solved my problem simply by having done a little bit of preliminary work. Now see that the mountain and the flag of Ireland break out of the frame, and when you do things that kind of violate the rules a little bit, people find that really very visually attractive. So, you know, we have a border there, and, you know, the border is for embellishments, right? It's got a purpose, but this violates that purpose. It breaks out of the frame that we're trying to put everything in. People love that. So now I'm going to kind of visually estimate this into thirds, because I'm very certain that the flag of Ireland has 3 vertical stripes. And I'm going to try to make them parallel here. Okay, so using simple implements like ruler and, for instance, compasses or patterns can give you powerful effects. Now, there's another corresponding flag up here for my father's heritage, where he's from. Our family descended from on his side, and I've got this portion of this black line right here, this stripe that runs through here, moves your eye along, and it comes up into the border somewhere. I'm thinking about right about here. And so I'm going to kind of put that lazy S in there to indicate that. And where it goes, okay, very good. I can see pretty clearly where this works at. So it's just a lazy S. Looks almost like a snake. Okay. Now, I'm drawing a little bit bolder. I've been exploring some other settings with the camera, and also the projector, and also the camera on the document camera. And I think this is coming out much more clearly already. I can tell just by looking at it. Okay, so we're working to transfer this information. I'll even bring it through the circles here, because the top portion of it, I noticed, touches or passes behind. That's okay. Okay. Now let's see. This can go. Okay. Now the reason I'm putting this in there is because I have to have someplace to stop this, and also you kind of get better ideas a lot of times when you just continuously look back and manipulate what you've seen and what you're drawing. Now here's another instance where I'm breaking out of the frame. On a flag, that's a real, you know, that's not, that goes against the rules, right? Look at any flag. But when you have your own personal flag or banner, you get to set the rules, I guess, for it, as long as they meet the requirements for the art project. Okay, that's good. Now, that gives me a place now to put all this together and for it to stop. And so in this case, I've got this little flip up right here. I'm going to do that with the flag too, I think, on the end. It's going to flip up also. And it's mimicking this little flip up over here. And so we can kind of place that in there. And I'm going to have to estimate, this is about, let's see, it says it's about 2.5 inches. So if I were to do about 2.5 inches, that at least it'd be about the same size that way. Okay. Okay, and this comes out of the circle that the music portion is on, and that was my dot right there. I better check that again. Well, that's about it. Okay. Alright. Actually, it's 2.5 inches from the little flip up. Well, that's right on. Okay, I've got to trust my measurements sometimes. And so sometimes these, well, and I also centered these circles up, so that's part of it too here. So let's see if we can't make a lazy S that flips up at the end. Yeah, like that. And we'll join these together. That's awesome. The question is, oh, still 2.5 inches. Oh, close to it. But okay, I'll live with that. Sometimes you gotta live with what you've done here. Boy, I bolded that line though with that soft leaded pencil, and it is a little difficult to erase. Okay, let's dust this out of here. That looks pretty good. This will color up nicely. So on our 12 by 18 inch piece of paper here now, we're going to have a lot of coloring to do, and that's why you can't get real super detailed. Now what I'm going to do is, see this line right here, I'm going to transfer that line up here to my other flag. Maybe fudge it just a little bit. And then I'm going to transfer this line up to this other flag. Okay, so now what that may cause me to do is to maybe bump out this line a little bit more in here. Yeah, that's what I'm going to have to do there to okay, and then maybe keep this one right here, but return it in this direction. Okay, that means this one goes away and this one goes away. Okay, that'll probably work. That kind of more closely resembles the planning work, although it doesn't have to be perfectly like the plan, and almost no plan ever goes 100% anyway. Okay, and I'm going to fatten that up in order to mimic this side of it over in here. Okay, very good. So, there we go. Okay, let's clean this up. So this really is just my idea for how I would make a personalized flag or banner if I had to solve this problem. Now most flags of most nations have powerful symbols, but they're much less complex than this. But there are some flags, if you look at the world's flags, that are very complicated work. The flag of Saudi Arabia is very complicated with a bunch of calligraphy in it. You know, and the United States flag, it's pretty complicated too. The stripes and the blue star, the blue area for the stars is fine, but that pattern that the stars form is crazy if you had to try to draw it. I made a painting once of a bandana that was an American flag print, and it was very difficult to reproduce those stars. The five-pointed star in itself is difficult to reproduce, and then when you combine that problem with trying to put them in the specific order or pattern that they're in on the blue star field, that's pretty hard. Okay, now we're going to go to this chevron now that I've worked on this long enough. Okay, now it looks like the chevron is centered up on that center line. Isn't that funny? But that it seems to ride lower in the picture, but it's true. It's right on the center line. So this is tilted and hits part of the white area of the flag of Ireland right there. So I'm going to kind of tilt this like this, and that gives me a pretty good idea what angle I want the other one to go at. And it's going to be, it looks like, you know, if this was going through here, I look at that, it's kind of hitting in the middle of the, but I want them to be, you know, angles that are very much the same. So, and so this angle, I want it to really be very similar to this angle. So I may have to kind of eyeball it at first, and then go back and kind of tighten it up a bit with the ruler. In fact, I could also have this breaking out into the border too. This that might be attractive because the stripe is not going to have much space for the little notch of it sticking out there. But if I were to reduce this stripe and have it hang out into the border, that would be really visually interesting. And if I had it almost, well, I'm going to have it touching this arc of this circle right here. So sometimes you're led to creative decisions by what it is that you're trying to achieve, and you just happen to find it. Okay, so let's, if this is going to really be the line, I'm going to have to, it looks like it's about a 90-degree angle. Okay, well, we'll go with it. And if this is, it looks almost like precisely 90 degrees, so we'll go with that too. Okay, now here's the irony, is we're going to break that stripe out of the frame. So we're going to abandon the execution of it as shown here and take some creative liberties with it, simply because it will look better. And that line is going to come all the way, almost, well, we'll make it easy. We're going to terminate it right there on the edge of the frame. So we want this to be tilted at the same angle as that one, if we can make that happen. Okay, and now strangely, it's hitting this flag of Ireland right at the mark there. Let's turn this, and we're going to attempt to draw the same angle, and it looks as though that is pretty close. What if I did that? That wouldn't work. It's got to be, it looks like this angle. Trying to make it, I could use a protractor if I wanted to really sweat the details, but I'm not going to. Okay, because I think that, now see, now this part right down here is bigger than this part, so that's not going to work either. So what I got to do, because I can't get this line out any farther, if I keep lifting it up it'll run off the paper. So I'm going to have to take this line back until they're about the same thickness. So the thickness is about, let's measure that. That's a good question in centimeters. It says it's 2 centimeters. So that means we'll measure off 2 centimeters here. And does it make a big difference? Probably not, but it does to me. Okay. That already makes me feel better. That asymmetrical chevron really poked me in the eye. I couldn't take it. Okay, so, you know, from the few sessions we've been together, we've been making extreme progress. Planning is really an important part of making artwork. I think you can see that you've seen my planning start from concept to execution so far, and along the way I've stuck to the plan, and other times I've had to make adjustments, and that's just how making art is. However, without having done some prior planning, I would be solving all of these problems on the fly, and that really is a recipe for disaster. So planning, although it takes time, is an effective use of your time. And whereas making mistakes and having to start, all over sometimes, if you're making a painting, sometimes you have to start all over. Or a sculpture, you can't just stop some of these things. And so you have to plan these things out. All right, we've got this and this. We're going from the general to the specific. Okay, now in the very middle of all of this, we've got this chevron also that comes out of the hills and goes up here to the swamps, and so that's kind of a skinny stripe, and I'm going to bet that if I drew this line all the way down here, I'm going to bet that it comes in from here and up here. So that'll be an easy one, I think. Let's see what we can do. I'm going to draw this in not real heavy-handed because there are parts of it that will need to be erased later. Okay. Now see this one, okay, I see. Okay. Now it would have gone to this corner, but that's where all the content is for the swamp. So that is all obscuring that, but this line is still visible. And then from that, we're going to make this one go. It would come to the bottom of the picture here. I can see that in my idea work. Okay, so center it up there. Like this. And I can actually draw this with a pretty heavy touch because of the fact that this will be one of the lines. This stripe is on top of a lot of the other stripes, and so and other content, so it will look fine. Now, same thing yet again, and this is all obscured up here, so I'm just going to make a nice attention-getting stripe there. And on the idea work, you can still see the stripe hits that circle for education, and so that's an important thing to me. And then this one down here passes through the circle that I was using to represent the military, which is important to me as well. Okay, now, see, we're getting somewhere here. So we're simply working from even the easy things that we've been doing have given us some complex problems to solve, though. And that is part of doing this. And I still have the original chevrons that I started out with, if you remember in the first session of this. I had all these chevrons in the background, and then they've all kind of disappeared because they've been overlaid with other images. So now I can do a little bit more layout work here, I think. Maybe start with my lettering too next. But I think I'm going to put a stripe in behind the state of Ohio, as I discussed in a previous session here. And so I'm going to want to measure that off so it's attractive, but also takes up enough space to be significant. And I'm going to call that stripe maybe an inch tall on each side, and maybe an inch and a half. Oh man, let's go to centimeter scale. Maybe that'll work. So if it's 3 centimeters, that's 1 inch, but if it's 3.5 centimeters, well, I do like the way that touches that shield. So maybe that's how we'll make this decision. So it touches the shield and it passes above the mountain. Okay, that's good. We'll use, I think that's 3 inches, or 1.5 inches. That's 1.5 inches on each side. So I can mark up here, and that's the other one right here. Now, so I want to make sure that these lines are accurate, because the stripe that I'm putting in the background has to run level. I hope it will. So let's connect our dots right here. Looks pretty good so far. So this could probably actually goes all the way to the other end of the circle. Let's see here. That looks level, I guess. Trying to be now. See, I'm starting to get my design is starting to work out the way I like it, and so I'm a little bit more timid about making decisions because I don't want to mess up. Okay, this in here will be the state of Ohio. Okay, and then this one will be over here. Let's see if we can just eyeball it and make it live. Probably should measure it, but I'm not going to. Okay. Huh. Okay, that looks pretty good. I want to go with that. Okay, and then it will pass into here. And then in here it should be lighter, but because it's going to hit that. This can be erased though, so I've noticed that too. Alright, so see, here's how we're making some progress here, and I'm going to block in a square where my state of Ohio is going to go at. And if the state of Ohio, let's see, it looks like in my idea work that it takes up a pretty significant amount of space. I'm going to make it 2 on this side, I'm going to make it 2 on this side, and then I'm going to just draw this box. It might be a little large. I'm saying it's going to be too low. Well, maybe not. Okay, maybe it's okay, maybe, yeah, this might work. This is going to be where the drawing of the state of Ohio goes. And if this is 2 inches over here, see, okay, this might work. But see, that's just planning, or kind of figure out a way to execute your plan. And in this case, I think it's going to work, because it's almost resembling the drawing on the concept piece, which I'm looking at slightly off camera. Okay, so see, if that's all going to be in there, I can erase this out of the middle just to keep myself organized. Because you start getting way too many lines flying through these things, and the next thing you know, you're confused by your own drawing. And that happens more frequently than you think. If we were in the physical classroom, numerous times I've had students come to me and try to ask me, you know, what am I drawing? How did I get to this point? And you just have to watch them work. So that's one of the disadvantages of being in a virtual room or trying to make this project up, you know, if you're not in a physical classroom. So I really am a big believer in the physical classroom, but in this particular case, whether you're making this project up or you're e-learning or you're just viewing it for your own personal education, then it might work for you. Okay, now this is interesting. I'm getting this kind of three-dimensional effect right here in this corner. And I've got my state of Ohio blocked out where I'm going to put that in at, and it looks like I can just keep working from the simple to the more complex. And so I think the next thing I'm going to take on is going to be my initials and the banner as well. So I think I'll start with the initials. And if I were to look at my idea work right here, it shows that the corner of my B kind of breaks, is hidden by the border there. And so I'm trying to kind of estimate this distance right here, and it looks to me like that's about here on my drawing. So I put a little registration mark right there, and then I'm going to try to make this run at the same angle as this. So you have to kind of eyeball it, and it seems to me like that's about the same angle. I'm going to go ahead and just try it and see. I'm strangely going to have to stand up to look at this. Yeah, that's pretty close. I guess if I had to adjust it, I'd adjust it this way a bit. Okay, that'll work. So let's go ahead and just make that adjustment, because it'll drive me crazy if I don't. And it's only a small change, but it can have profound consequences, especially when you're trying to do these three-dimensional lettering. Okay, so that'll probably be alright. So, having done that now, that would represent this line right here. So I can back up a little bit, and this is going to be this black portion right here. There we go. And so this portion of the black three-dimensional, you know, the back portion of the B is this right here. So, well, so that would be, that's what we just drew right here. Now we're going to try to put all this in here so it kind of hangs out at the end. So let's see, I would say this is about like this. Now you got to just kind of freehand a lot of times, and we want curved and straight lines. Everything can't be all blocky, or it really makes it either becomes visually fatiguing, meaning the person looking at it gets tired of looking at it, or it becomes repetitive or so static, meaning it doesn't look like it's got any sense of movement to it at all. Alright, now I'm going to have to continuously adjust this until I get what I'm looking for. But what I'm looking for is a little bit, I think, thinner. A little bit thinner front portion to the upper bout of this B, and I think it's about right here. And then I can really kind of bump this out a little more aggressively. Maybe you go up above the line. That's probably it right there. So, you know, when you're sketching along and you're freehanding, you have to use this kind of gestural approach where you just keep searching and just keep messing with the line until you find what you're looking for, and that's the line that you go back and bold, and everything else gets, you know, erased out. And that's how drawing is done. A lot of people want to make the final mark with the first stroke of the pencil, and man, is that a rarity. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. Most of the time you don't believe it, and then when you attempt to fix it, you just mess it all up. So it does occasionally happen, and so that's just an experience thing where you have to just know it when you see it and know when to stop manipulating it. Okay, this is going to be all right. Okay, here's that's fine. And it's dusted, and I got to get my slip sheet because this is going to get really smudgy in a very short period of time. Okay, now I can go ahead and maybe put in the little look-throughs there, the holes in the letter B, and it's pretty solid built B there. So, okay, yeah, there we go. See, so sometimes you can almost get it right on the very first try, and other times you may never get it right. You just have to settle for whatever you get. Okay, now here's my three-dimensional portion in here. A reverse lazy C. Almost if you had to visualize a crescent moon shape, that's what I would call it there. So a lot of times when you're drawing anything, you have to kind of ask yourself, what does this look like that I'm familiar with that you know you can draw? Okay, we're going to do the lower bout of our character representing the letter B. And I think this is starting to have a better look than my idea work was, and so I'll guarantee if I hadn't done the thinking process for a few days to get my concept down, I would not be able to produce the project as quickly. So preparation time, but speaking of preparation time, it's about the end of this session here. They typically run about 35 to 40 minutes sometimes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bold up my three-dimensional portion of this too. Alright. And I may just go ahead and well, I'm going to have to save this for another day, but I think I can probably go ahead and try to get the letter K in here as well. So this bottom line right here is going to be part of our three-dimensional, the base of our, wait a minute, something went horribly wrong here. Okay, I should be able to see this. That's true. Okay, here we go. Should I? I don't know if I can or not. That kind of defies comprehension, doesn't it? Because if you see this, you shouldn't be able to see this surface, should you? It's something to think about. I have to think about that. But I do know I can see this letter K, and it's kind of about right in here somewhere. Okay, so I'm going to pooch it up just a little bit, and then try to project this corner forward. Huh. Let's try it this way, because that is not working for me. Because I'm trying to get this line right here, which I guess probably should be about right here. That's where I went wrong. So, and it comes up just a little bit higher than the part of the B. You can notice that. That's why you can see that little corner sticking out. Okay, now that's better. Okay, I'm going to dust this to keep it looking good. And I'm going to use this line as the top portion of my K, this right here. Probably about right here it looks like. If I were to follow this right here all the way down, you can see it hits the lower bout right there somewhere. So this line right here goes in between and it hits the lower bout. That's okay. So we should be able to see this part right here. So this comes straight down, hits right here. And then down here we see the back portion of the K also. And this would be about right in here somewhere. Okay. Now, I'm going to come over this way, down here. So I'm going to do the face of the letter first. When you do the front portion of the letter, when you're doing this block lettering, it makes it work a little better. Okay. And there we go. Okay, and this also. Sometimes when you get in the groove, you've got to stay with it. Okay, and then this should finish somewhere down here. They should be about even right there. This notch here and this notch in the K. Now K is one of the widest letters in the alphabet. And ironically, my name has several very wide letters in it. Okay, I keep saying that. And we're working on the letter K. I can't get it out of my head. Alright, see how I said that? And then, see, this part pooches out in front of it. But sometimes, you know, you make a project, it doesn't come out precisely. The measurements are slightly different from one portion to the next, from the planning work to the next item. So in this case, I'm looking pretty happy with this. See, this would go back in space like this. Okay, now this is our three-dimensional effect working in there. We'd be able to see this. It would be like this. Would it? Would it? I'm going to say yes. Because this, there's where it goes. This goes back like this. Okay, I'm going to now clean a little bit of this up, and we're going to take a look at what has been done today. If you're drawing along with what I'm drawing along, you should have something pretty much like that by now, and that's actually a pretty good session. So we'll get back together in another session and drive on with this, and we will be maybe talking about grading here in the next day or two. Alright, thanks.